Building on that discussion about stigma and the experience of patients on opioids, our next speaker, coming to us from Riverside University Health System as a research specialist, is Kiran Gill.
Well, thank you, Dr. Young. I'm sorry, I decided to sit all the way at the top so that I had to hurry down here. But as Dr. Young mentioned, my name is Kiran Gill. I'm coming here from Riverside University Health System and from UCLA. I still work with UCLA doing project coordination. So I'm here to talk about the HOPE intervention and behavior change technologies for opioid overdose prevention. So a perk of going after some wonderful speakers is that, as you all have heard in talks earlier today, the opioid crisis has started with the use of prescription pain medication, leading to addiction, abuse, dependence, and the ultimate use of illicit drug use. So we thought to ourselves, in order to address this issue, our team at UCLA decided to go directly to the source. We set up a study where we first interviewed UCLA patients on chronic opioid pain and asked, what do you currently use for opioid addiction? And what do you feel would help you address any of these unmet needs? And the results that we found were, here's some direct quotes, yes, that there are existing support groups, support groups are great, but they aren't necessarily meeting their needs. That they'd go to these support groups, found them to be somewhat superficial, felt a little dogmatic, and there was no relatability to their specific needs. So instead of going to these groups and feeling supported, they would come out sometimes feeling judged. That there's a need for tailored support. That a key to feeling support is to feel specific connections to your group. And sometimes they'd go to these groups and they'd feel like, okay, well, maybe it would be more beneficial if maybe we separated out the people that are using opioids to get high versus those that are using it for pain. And that online communities are needed, that online support groups do allow you to post as little or as much as you need, and it helps you not feel alone because you can go online at any time of the day and you can post if you'd feel like, and you can receive instant feedback, or you just have that opportunity to vent, and sometimes that's all you really need. So we realized that we already have something that could do all of these things, that can meet the need of having support groups, tailoring it to specific populations, and having it be online. We have a study that literally does all of this. It's called our HOPE study. And it helps create communities by bringing people together that have shared backgrounds, connecting members via an online platform, and it's easy to use because it's online. And you're able to discuss barriers to opioid overdose prevention in open discussion, so you can address stigma. So to give you a little bit of background on what the HOPE study is, HOPE stands for Harnessing Online Peer Education. It's a design that's been around for almost 10 years now, and it focuses on online communication as a means to disseminate health education and change people's health behaviors. The reason for doing it online is that there is a shift in communication. There is less face-to-face time. There is less communication going on via phone, email, whatever it may be, that there is this technology takeover, that people are using social media as a means of connecting and in communicating. So how does HOPE work? HOPE works by deciding on a target population, using Facebook as our social media platform to connect people and see if that has a capacity to change people's health behaviors. So how the study is designed, just to give you like a quick little background, recruit some participants. We didn't recruit however it may be. We did it online, and you split the group into an intervention group or control group, actually 2 in each. The intervention group has peer leaders, what we identified as being people who are active community leaders already, and they receive training by UCLA staff on the epidemic of whatever our focus is on, and on how to use social media as a means of disseminating or just communicating in general. And and that's the intervention group, is a group with the peer leaders versus the control group that does not have those peer leaders. And for our initial HOPE studies, our population was HIV population, and results showed that peer leaders in this virtual community were able to establish community norms by reaching out at both a community level and at an individual level to promote HIV prevention. And we found that those participants would begin to communicate with one another and help spread those norms throughout the community, and ultimately strengthen and ultimately go outside of the community and start to disseminate that education as well. The ultimate results of our HIV study showed that in the intervention groups, they were twice as likely to change their health behaviors than the control groups. So we thought to ourselves, we already have this great design. What we're going to do is apply it to an opioid intervention. And opioid is actually the name of when this intervention was put forth. Our intervention group renamed themselves, as instead of being study group 1, they renamed themselves Opioid. I thought that was very nice and clever. So for the duration, we're going to refer to this study as Opioid. So we created this HOPE study for the opioid intervention, and we recruited UCLA patients on chronic opioid therapy for non-cancer pain through the UCLA medical record patient registry. And the criteria for being a member was that you had to be a UCLA patient prescribed an opioid for non-cancer chronic pain for at least 3 months, and score at least a 9 on the current opioid misuse measure, that COM score you see here, and that they were willing to join an online support group. The peer role models in this study had to fit those exact same criteria, and that they were recommended by a study physician as being somebody who is sociable and effectively managing their own prescription opioids. So we interviewed the study staff, and those that selected attended 2 4-hour training sessions at UCLA on chronic opioids to get that background or epidemiology on opioids, as well as receive that information on how to use Facebook as a means to disseminate education and connect with people, and have the etiquette to communicate via an online means. And again, the intervention, they were either split into 2 groups, an intervention group or control group. Intervention group had those peer role models, whereas the control group did not. So our outcome measures for this study were to see if we could find a reduction in their COM score and their GAD-7 score. And we collected pre-posts of a saliva drug test to see if there was a decrease in polysubstance use and a decrease in their dosage of prescription opioids. There were a total of 51 people who took part in the opioid study, an average age of 44 and a half. Majority were female. They came from a variety of different educational and income backgrounds. Some outcome results. So here we see for the GAD-7, there was a statistically significant difference from being in the intervention group, that their scores decreased significantly versus those that were in the control group. But that the COM scores seemed to, no matter what, being a part of a study seemed to show that their COM scores did change. So being a part of a community was efficient enough to have changed those scores, but that being in an intervention was able to change the GAD-7 scores. So instead, we decided, okay, let's take a closer look at the group engagement statistics. So we found that, here you see at the bottom, the intervention group had a mean of being engaged, a score of 8.2 versus 1.25 in the control group. And we see that the conversation topics varied very much so. That those in the intervention group use social media to discuss their pain, prescription opioid use, coping strategies, places to seek help, alternative therapies for pain, etc. Versus the control group, they were able to express their pain, but they weren't able to get to those conversations and the solutions for the pain. So quickly just going over a couple of examples of what the posts look like throughout the study. Here in week 1, a control group and the intervention group, they're doing a kind of an equal amount of posting, of introducing themselves, equal quality. Introducing themselves, giving themselves background on why they're here, why they were prescribed opioids, and so on. Whereas in week 4, you see that the control group, they're wondering, like, okay, now that we've introduced ourselves, now what? So it was kind of week 1 introduced, a lull, and then here we're a month later and they don't really know what to do with themselves. Versus the intervention group, they're continuing to talk about current cases of what they're feeling and what's going on. At week 8, we see that there's a difference in the control group. Now they're attempting, it's week 8, attempting to engage people again, attempting to share their stories. And we see that this post was seen by 18 people, liked by 1, and commented by 0. Whereas in the intervention group, you see that here, this post, it's a month premature to the study being finished, and people are worrying about what do we do once the study's over? You know, like, do we get to maintain this relationship? They don't want to lose this group. And this post was seen by 16 people, liked by 4, commented by 9. Then week 12, the end of the study, you still see the control group trying to make posts. We see, like, when people aren't responding to written text, they'll post pictures to try to get people, like, to quickly see whatever they're writing. And this time it was seen by 8 people, so half the number of people, liked by 2 and commented by 0, whereas intervention group continuing to talk about their pain, and seen by 16, liked by 2, commented by 5. So quickly, just to go over the rest of this, I know we're short on time. The reflection is the control group, they did begin to open up and introduce themselves, attempted to engage, and continue to attempt to build this community, whereas this picture here was a direct post from the intervention group. Somebody had posted saying that, I found my people, I found this group, I love being here. And some more results that we've seen is that you really see a transfer in the role from these peer role models to the participants, where now they were taking on the role of peer leaders, and they were the ones making posts saying, oh my gosh, like I read your story, it really inspired me, or hey, like this is a situation, how would you relate to this? Taking on those peer role models roles. And a couple of posts about them staying connected post the study. The study ended in October of 2016. A month later, Thanksgiving came around, people are still posting in there. New Year's came around, people are posting there, starting to refer to each other as friends, Facebook friends, and this bottom saying, like, love to you all. So some intervention quotes to kind of show, like, whether this intervention was successful in meeting those 3 needs that I had mentioned in the beginning. And it said, like, some things highlighted here, I personally was more comfortable telling my story in writing. And a lot of these stories that I was able to read in these forums mirrored my own stories, and I was able to learn a lot from them. That once you start to share, it really does help. And in this quote on the bottom here, it said that in real life, that he didn't have people who cared to listen, and that the few that did, they didn't understand. So it was really valuable for him to be a part of this community and share with people who were in the same boat as him. And this one at the top here, I really like to point it out, where it said that, he canceled his plans for that evening and stayed glued to his monitor, and was brought to tears because for the first time in 27 years of life dominated by pain, someone got exactly how he felt. And that everyone's story relates to something unique that only those like us can truly comprehend. We're all at different pitfalls and obstacles, but that only adds to the benefit of learning from one another. So in conclusion, what this all shows here is that results are promising, that online communities are useful, and the use of technology can create connection. That there is room for improvement and innovation, that hope, all caps, can provide hope, lowercase, for the future. So, thank you.